boys and girls, welcome to this week's episode of Hollow Weekly. Nick and George here with, this is a episode we've been wanting to do for a while. You know, I never...
As part of a possible series.
As
we'll see.
part of a possible series. Well,
we don't have a name for the series, so there's no series yet. But if we had a name, it would probably be a series.
it'd be At Long Last.
At long last.
That's what we're...
Because we want to take up the banner for some overlooked horror movies that are underappreciated. Like, underrated is not...
Everything's underrated now.
Yeah, that's a
Scream's underrated.
Yeah, that's not the although I'd argue Scream 4 is underrated. But that's not the point of it is not what is underrated, but just movies that seem to have vanished. Like literally I looked up to see if this movie had ever been reviewed in a podcast. It's happened one time that I could locate in all of history. I mean, can you imagine? While we're talking, there's 5 podcasts being recorded about Halloween.
Yeah.
Right, but this movie like one time in the history of podcasting,
And that was it.
That's amazing.
Which is criminal.
It is criminal. Well, we're about to double the output.
We are single-handedly going to double the Dagon reviews in the podcast world.
That's exactly
because that's the kind of power we have.
That's exactly right.
So it's Dagon. As we said, we wanted to talk about
2001 Dagon, Stuart Gordon's masterpiece.
What a film.
One of his masterpieces.
And before we get into it, me and this film had a history, and I didn't know about this history. And you know what's funny? It's
great.
by chance, which is a theme for this show.
Two possibilities,
that I would have never met George,
Correct.
who then told me what the film was almost on a dime. And there was points in time in my life when I Googled, like, guy gets gills, woman...
Right.
Because I couldn't remember the film.
Because you saw this. Tell the story.
So,
this
obviously it was 2001, so that would mean, like, it was Halloween night, trick-or-treating at, like, 3rd or 4th grade or something like that, I think. We go around, we do the rounds. We had a real baller-ass town for trick-or-treat, too. It was great. You see all your friends from school in their costume, and you said at the end of the night, we had the bag, which is all of us, all the candy combined. So we had the bag. Come home from trick-or-treating. My mom make some cocoa. We go to pour.
You were all dressed up as Dagon characters, right?
I was a fish. So. No, 4th grade.
Although I'm telling you, Dagon would have been the guy on the cart. You could have just carted around your town the whole time.
That would have been
with a bag of candy.
That would have been great. No, I think 4th grade. I was either someone from Mortal Kombat or an executioner, because there was a fighting game for Nintendo 64 where you could play as an executioner. I was like, that's badass. I remember telling people, when I grow up, I want to be an executioner.
Your guidance counselor was
like not having known like what actual like decapitated heads look like.
That's
and shit,
awesome.
Which grossed me out. So we get back Halloween night, retired. My dad has on Sci-Fi Channel. He used to have the Sci-Fi Channel on a lot when we were kids, but then stopped when we got older. I don't know why. But he had it on, and I see this film, and there was 2 parts to Dagon I remember. I for some reason they stuck with me more than any film that I can remember. And the one scene I remember is somebody with half of their leg cut off, and then a bunch of zombie-like creatures surrounded them. Then I remember a guy screaming, discovering he has gills, and then swimming off. Mm-hmm. That was like 4th grade. Mm-hmm. However many years later.
And you were occasionally you'd think, I should look that movie up, and you search and you couldn't find it.
Yeah, I searched. I probably throughout the years, I probably searched for it like real hard, like probably 2 to 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Like spending a few hours trying to find it and never found it.
Right.
So then, fast forward, our significant others join each other in a writing class. We go to Shakespeare Park. I mean, you. We start talking about horror films, and then I'm like, did you ever see this film? It was like someone had a leg cut off, I think, and there were zombies. It was always raining, and then a guy gets gills, and you're like, oh yeah, Dagon. I was, what?
Yeah.
You did better than Google? Over the years.
Well, and the funny thing is, what was throwing you off was zombies.
Yeah,
that was killing your search.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, so
man with gills with woman would have easily.
Right, that explains it. Right?
Yeah, and so and so even when you had told me about it, because you own it on Amazon, you were like, yeah, just watch it on here. I never got around to it.
Right.
And for some reason, because it's sort of like the Universal Monsters, like I've never watched a full Universal Monster. I refuse to because have an idea of the characters in my head, and I watch.
You don't want to mess with it.
Yeah,
now.
yeah, I don't want to mess with it.
Totally.
So it was the same as Dagon.
Yep.
But Dagon, which I'm sure the Universal films would if I did, Dagon lived up to it, and I was like, holy shit! Like it had like this dream-like quality to it, which I probably
It's
think
the perfect movie to vaguely remember from childhood,
Yes.
like because it's kind of a haunting movie in and of itself. You know what I mean?
it's
It'd be disappointing if you went in and it turned out it was like Sharknado or something.
yeah,
right?
that would
Right.
suck. But what's funny is I only saw like a little bit of this film, and
Right.
the one thing I remembered specifically was the setting of the film. I just remember dark, rainy. It just looked wet.
Yep.
And then that stuck with me through all these years, and it's just weird that like just seeing that small snippet of it that much stayed with me, because all the other films didn't
Right.
for some reason, because there wasn't a mystery. It was like, okay, that guy's a chainsaw.
And selfishly, I was excited to discover you hadn't seen it, right? Because
Yeah.
I was like, oh, we're totally going to watch it and we'll do it for the podcast because it's one of those movies that not nearly enough people know, right? So
Yeah,
it's perfect for our nameless series.
yeah. There was a few people in the Hollow Weekly group who mentioned it, but it's like out of all,
Well, all right. So there's 18,000 people
Yeah.
in the group, and we asked, "Has anyone seen this?" We got 4 answers.
Yeah,
so it's statistically it's right around where I thought it was going.
which
to be.
is like,
But the people who liked it are evangelical about it, like I am.
yeah,
So-
because it's not like anything else
no,
you've
no,
probably
it's,
seen.
no, it's not. Right? It's got some Stuart Gordon-esque, touches and whatnot. But even for him, I feel like it's different, which we're going to get into. But before we dive into the movie itself, right? There's 2 big things to clear out of the way before we go into the movie, and I don't want to do too much with the Lovecraft part of it.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about Stuart Gordon a little bit because we're both fans,
Yep.
right? You like other Stuart Gordon
Reanimator.
things, right? And I like his Lovecraft stuff, but here's the thing. One of the things that's amazing to me about Stuart Gordon is and a way to think about this was sort of like a double barreled shotgun for me because we're taking up the banner for the movie, but I feel like we're also sort of going to take up the banner for the director. Not that he needs it because he's a horror legend.
Yeah.
But here's the weird thing. When you just think about it in this framework for a second. When you think about naming a director who has made horror masterpieces and stayed active and relevant through 4 decades, okay, so 80s, 90s, O's, and now, right? There are not a lot of names you can put in that category, right?
Big time span.
Right. It's a big time span, and it's also you got to do quality work in each of the time spans to qualify, right? So, we're talking about if you think about it in that framework, you're talking about names like Wes Craven, John Carpenter,
George Romero.
Toby Hooper, those names, right? And then I looked it up, and I was like, I remembered that he had done 1 episode of Masters of Horror, which was my favorite episode of Masters of Horror, which was the Black Cat, right? But I forgot that he also did Dreams of the Witch House, so he did 2
I've never seen
Masters of Horror episodes. That one's very Lovecraftian.
Gotcha.
Black Cat's actually Edgar Allan Poe, which I'm going to get to in a second. But the reason I'm bringing all this up is because I find it fascinating that picture like doing like a boxing match and having having an elimination boxing tournament and having like Tyson and Holmes and like Lennox Lewis and all these people, and then having me, like I would get killed, right? I don't belong in that category, right? So like you would think in Masters of Horror, when you're up against the people who directed in that, when you're up against John Carpenter, Joe Dante, Mick Garris, John Landis, these are the people who did Masters of Horror episodes. I swear to God, he did the best out of those. Like, and that means if he's in that category where he's at that level and he's done great work over that span of time, there is nobody who convinced me that he's as well known or famous or appreciated as John Carpenter, Toby Hooper, Wes Craven.
Yeah,
et cetera, right?
he's punching his
And the
weight.
fact that he punched above them in the Masters of Horror round tournament is pretty fucking amazing, right? So I just think from that framework, I think he fits our nameless series idea
Yeah,
perfectly.
it still blows my mind that like this film's not talked about more. Which I know everyone always has that one film where they're like, "Hey, we don't talk about life anymore." But like this film, like, trust me, baby, this one's different.
Well, and the thing is, so like that's, I mean, the like my actual favorite film of his is From Beyond, but like the fact that this the fact that he snuck this in a $4 million budget,
Yeah.
right, with a no-name cast, and that it's as good as it is and memorable as it is and distinct as it is just like I just feel like he should be talked about more and with more regard, and we're about to do it.
If you like Sleepy Hollow at all, if you liked
If you were watching Sleepy Hollow and you thought this needs more water,
right. Well, technically, all the fog was water. It
Well-
needs. So
good point.
if I want more actual wetness in the frame,
Yes.
then you're gonna love Dagon.
Yeah.
It's just from
Agreed.
the get. I mean, you get sunlight for like 10 minutes in that film, and then it's all rain.
Yeah.
Rain.
And it's great sunlight. And then when it gear shifts to not, you're the whole rest of the movie, you're just like,
You're pruny
you're dumped.
when it's over.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, totally. Exactly.
You need a towel.
And then but here's the other amazing part. One of the things that I think a lot of horror fans have a real fondness for is what horror did with literature, right? You don't turn great, you don't get action movies out of great literature, right? There's no like Die Hard with a Vengeance, Tale of Two Cities, right? It's not like a thing. Tom Clancy is the closest right now.
Oh yeah, Tom Clancy would be the closest one.
Right. And even like Westerns and all that stuff, like when you go to genres, but horror picks some of the best things ever written. So like there's a lot of horror. Corman did a lot of Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
And Stuart Gordon has done a lot of Lovecraft, and I'll get back to the Poe thing in a second. And then when you look at Universal Horror and you look at they were doing Bram Stoker's Dracula, Frankenstein for Mary Shelley, they were adapting some of the best written books known to man, right? Mm-hmm. So like there's something really special about when the genre does that, and that's why I brought it up, is because Stuart Gordon is probably the best, most consistent interpreter of H.P. Lovecraft on the screen. But what blew my mind was that he also hit such a home run doing The Black Cat, which is Edgar Allan Poe. I mean, if you find a great work of literature and just hand it to this guy, he'll make a great movie out of it.
Damn.
That's all it takes, right? He would have made an amazing Frankenstein. He just seems to have that touch with
Yeah, you know what though, is even the creatures in Dagon and the effects in a Reanimator, I would have killed to see him do Frankenstein. Now that I think about it,
right?
He's done retired. He's
yeah, he is.
Unless you want to do Frankenstein,
like,
let us introduce
you. Come back to do Frankenstein. So I like the fact that he's in that Corman James Whale tradition of interpreting literature and not. And he says that in the commentary track on Dagon. He's like, one of the real challenges of making movies out of Lovecraft is that Lovecraft does a lot of, it's the unnameable, the unseeable. Like your mind goes mad, but I can't describe what I saw. It had all these eyes and tentacles, but I can't really, like, he does a lot of that unseen thing, which makes terrible movies, right? You got to show it.
It's hard to interpret that.
Right. You got to show it. So, the fact that he stepped up to that challenge on just a minuscule budget is amazing.
$4 million for filming the unthinkable
in 2001. So, right.
Yeah, that's an uphill battle.
Yep. So let's get into the actual movie itself, because I think there's some really, really cool things that happen in almost every scene chronologically.
This film is surprisingly very funny.
And it's short, right? So you're not in for a long, long ride when you're watching it.
Some films feel really long now. But this one is like this is just a stop and go, like we go, then we're there.
But it was funny from the get, right? Like
the dude, did you get a little like Ash Williamsy vibe from this
I did.
film? Yeah.
I totally did. I mean, he's a typical Lovecraftian hero, which means
looks like the lead singer from Weezer. Rivers Cuomo.
So Ezra Godden is the name, and it turns out he is a heavily, heavily English actor. He has a super English accent.
Does he really?
Which would blow your mind after you watch this movie, because you will never catch it.
Who does American real well. Whenever I see them do like their real British accent, I go, "Wow,
it's amazing." Because he nails this one. You would never.
I never would have
guessed that he was that way. But he starts. I saw a little hatred online about how they overplay the two possibilities framework. I actually really like it, because I feel like it makes the movie super rewatchable from that framework, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But first scene, the way it starts is they're on a boat. It's not a yacht.
They called it a yacht.
Did they call it a yacht?
I don't know what makes a yacht or
It's a
sailboat.
$4 million movie budget.
That
yacht.
was 3.5 million. The budget.
That was the whole budget.
That island cost 250. So they were...
Right, exactly. But so they're on basically. Paul, he's with his girlfriend, and he's rich, so he's like a .com millionaire, and it sort of just happened, right? So he's on the boat, he's taking vacation there with his main investor and his wife, Howard and his wife. Vicky. They're on the Vicky, and they're on this boat, and it's just beautiful weather, and they're on vacation, and they have kind of a little lover's spat where she tosses his computer into the sea.
A 2001 laptop. That shit, you could have bought a house with that computer probably.
Well, it was to show how
because he also had internet connection up there.
Speaking of sound design, did you hear when that thing hit? Because that must have weighed like a brick.
Yeah, it was.
What were 2001 laptops were like?
This. Oh well. Once you finish that,
I'm done.
We got to dig into the sound of this film. I don't want to jump around too much, but holy shit, the sound design in this film
is so good.
It is so detailed and it's so fucking weird.
Yep.
Like
the creatures making those sounds, yeah.
And it's like it doesn't. It's not like your average creature feature where you hear the sound once, the creature's there. They play these noises throughout the whole.
Yeah, they do. And it's not there's noises from the setting, so like the physical setting from the city and wandering around in the buildings and stuff like that. But there's also the noises of the villagers / creatures that are as scary as the best effects in the movie. Like there's no visual I can think of this movie that's scarier than the sounds of the mob converging on them and making all this gross.
If you played just the noise that the villagers made, like in a haunted house, it would freak anyone out.
It reminded me actually of that freaky creature that your fiance recorded in Bali.
Oh, that gecko or whatever, the lizard.
We got to edit that into this episode.
Yeah, we'll put
Does she have the audio for that? Yeah,
she got the video. Yeah, I can put the audio in.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's you're in for a real treat because it reminded me of that. Like a little.
But what's crazy about though is it sounded like there was like 40 different types of noises. So like you would hear one noise sort of over and over again, but then you kind of hear something else. So it sounded like the noises were just so varied.
Yep.
Like it sounded like they were talking / just chanting at you.
Totally.
It was so freaky. Like this film probably has the scariest noises in it, and no one's talking about. This is the scariest sounding film you're ever gonna hear.
It really is. It really gets to you, and the atmosphere, like, and I like the patience of it. It saturates you. Like it's
for an hour and a half film. It doesn't. It stretches you out. And it's paced really well. Like I never thought about that, but you're right. By the time we got to the end of that film, I kind of felt wrung out.
Right, exactly. And so, but here's one of the cool things I think about this movie is, before I get to the two possibilities part, which I think is actually brilliant. It's a little smarter than I think some people give it credit for. But there's this part to me, like when you think about. You have this attack of the storm, and I like that the storm was kind of the first sign of trouble, but basically they go from the yacht to the town for help, right?
Yeah.
And at that point, they split up, and at this point, there's not that many characters in this movie.
No,
there's a lot of villagers, but there's basically. How many are there? There's basically
4. Or technically, when he meets the one.
So the old guy.
You got the old guy. You got
the couple, the two couples, but one of them is not there.
Yeah, so it's 5 people, basically.
Right. So yeah, it's like a chamber piece. There's not a lot of people in this. So, and then there's some side characters like the priest and whatnot. But what to me is amazing is. One of the main characters that they've sketched in and well enough where you're attached to her because she's really dynamic. She's really charismatic, which is his girlfriend. She drops out of the movie like 10 minutes in, and she's not in until 10 minutes before it finishes. Like she's gone for most of the movie, right? Which is
the opening and closing act.
Right. She just vanishes. And I don't think enough movies do this, but one of the unsettling effects of this movie was there would be a scene and like it would slow down for a second and it would give me a chance to think. And in the back of my head, I'd be like, where the hell is she? like
we
we had a major character and she vanished.
Where
and,
did Amber go?
right, exactly. Nothing's happening. So like that, the fact that that was in the back of your head means that this was working on a couple different levels, which I really like. So so that's one thing. All right, before I do my two possibilities like sermon, tell me about the humor.
So like we said, it's got a little Ash Williams in it. Like the guy he's silly, but not in a way that takes you out of the film. Like it almost sort of it's sort of like imagine Ash Williams in Dead Alive.
Perfect.
That is the humor in this film. Peter Jackson's Dead Alive with Ash Williams in it.
Yep.
And it's the stuff he does is like my favorite part is when he sees all the villager fish people, yada yada yada. He goes into his hotel, or no, he looks from his balcony. They see him.
His balcony. You make it sound like he's in like this palatial. Like, he's in the worst hotel.
He's leaning out of the
history,
window. Yeah. And then when they go up to get to him, he goes to shut the door and lock it. The lock's been removed, so he pulls out. And oh my god, I love how much he utilized his like Swiss Army knife. He goes to like the bathroom door, starts unscrewing it like all the way.
Right. So there's a bolt on the door, and it does not on the entrance door, but it's on the bathroom door.
So then
he's relocating the bolt. And there's this dramatic scene, and if anyone has seen Scout's Guide to Zombie Apocalypse, it's the exact same ridiculousness as them trying to change the tire on the car while the zombies are converging.
Exactly like that.
Right? It's exactly like you're watching them try to fumble the screws into the bolt, and you know the whole time the bolt is fucking ridiculous. It's not gonna hold anybody off. And it's like this tiny $2 Home Depot like bolt, and he's screwing it in like he's gonna be saved. Like it's gonna like prevent the fish.
He
horde.
tried real hard. Though. He didn't. Like we knew and he knew that it wasn't gonna do anything, but like he tried real hard.
That's what I really like. One of the things I really like about Stuart Gordon's work is I feel like for all the absurdity, there's these really believable moments where you know what they're gonna do is a fail. But they're so committed to the, like, right?
You're like, go ahead. You can do this plan that's going to fucking suck and kill you. But, like, I'm on your side, man. I want this to happen.
Right, totally.
It has you rooting for, like, the dumbest shit.
Yes,
which I love.
Absolutely.
So, but the humor is sort of throughout it. Like
the guy who's at the front desk at the hotel is hilarious. Even though he's sort of scary, he's also...
He just dead ass looks at him like with the eyes.
Yeah, he's just. I mean, he has no reaction.
It's funny, but it's also very unsettling.
Exactly.
Which is this whole film.
Right.
This whole film is completely unsettling, but like there's really silly things that happen that just like make you giggle or laugh.
Yeah, totally. I remember when we were trying to set up to tell the Facebook group that we're going to be reviewing this, and we were looking for clips from the movie or GIFs or things we could use, right? And there aren't many online because again, it's an underappreciated movie. But the first one I found was him trying to hold both doors in the hotel closed, one with his leg, one with his arm, and it's like a Charlie Chaplin scene. It's not. I mean, it's slapstick. It's not. So you have that in this movie, which is great. And then it takes a hard turn out of nowhere, and all of a sudden people are getting skinned alive, or like just
the effects in this film.
The practical effects are great. The CGI,
the CGI seemed very.
It's pretty tough.
It seemed like it had no budget.
Yep.
Or time.
Yep. Or it was 2001.
Yeah, or it was 2001.
Right.
So those parts stick out, but they don't stick out enough for me to be like.
Well, I'm going to make an argument here for this. So I heard a lot of people talking about how bad the CGI is, and I get it because I feel like there's a couple moments that are really memorably bad CGI, like Birdemic level bad CGI.
Yeah.
But I there's one reason why I think it doesn't even it's not even a flesh wound for the movie, and I'll tell you why. Well, maybe it's just because I love the movie so much, so I'm going to argue for it. But I really believe that the worst CGI moment is probably the tentacles jump scare coming out of her face. Because that's really obvious. But I think she's the scariest thing in the movie.
She just looks very freaky.
Well, yeah, and the weird thing about her is that she
his stepsister.
Yeah, basically spoiler. She has like First of all, she's completely committed as an actress. Like I if she walked in the room as an actress, it would freak me out because I think she's that character. I think she has no legs. I think she's a fish person.
She kind of gives me like an Eva Green vibe.
Yeah,
in terms of like they have this weirdness to them.
Yes,
that just works.
Yes, totally. But she's sort of she's off.
Yeah.
She's just the right
it's
amount.
Her eyes. She's always. It's always She looks surprised all the time.
Totally. And I think because she's so good that that the worst CGI moment in the movie is basically a jump scare with her in it. So I feel like it's still scary because she's scary.
And then the other bad CGI was her.
Macarena Gomez is her name.
Flying over to Earth. What do squids move? Do they squibble over? It's her brother.
It's like a slither hop.
Slither hop, because it was weird.
Yeah, it was weird. When she tries to push him in to put him out of the fire.
Yeah, that part looked bad.
Yeah, that was terrible.
But like, it's like, okay, it looks bad, but like, I'm still kind of freaked out by all these like Leatherface looking dudes chanting for his girl to get taken by Dagon.
Yeah, right. It was terrible. So that is, and I actually, even when he has his "I'm a badass" moment, he has that moment. I mean,
oh my god!
First of all, let's face
funny.
it. He's the final girl.
Yeah.
Right? So like, but when he has his Ripley moment, when he arms up,
he's hilarious. He's just like, you're a bunch of freaks.
He's still hilarious, right? Which is great.
And he's not having it.
No, and I actually think that that's on purpose. I think this movie is indebted to freaks in a couple different ways.
The movie, like the Todd
Browning movie, and I think that was sort of a conscious, homage to freaks.
Yeah, I got that vibe.
Totally, because the scariest scene in Freaks is when they're chasing him down at the end. They're crawling through the mud. And there's a rainstorm. And
a lot of shit like that.
Right, and there's so much in this movie that's like that. You know what I mean? So I feel like there's just no way around the fact that was sort of a call out to it. So that part is interesting. You maybe just reminded me. It was funny when he tried to escape and he tried to hotwire the car.
Oh yeah.
Who hotwires a car without knowing how to hotwire a car?
Yeah, he just kind of whipped it out. And I was like,
that's not gonna work, right? There's no way.
I mean, he was sort of like a geek tech person, so
yeah, maybe.
But like, I'm a geek tech person.
Can you hotwire a car?
No, I'll end up like shocking my balls or something with the wires. It'll be real bad.
Well, then I count his only making the horn go off a victory because at least he didn't shock him.
It got him somewhere.
They got him caught. Is what
well,
the
car ended up rolling backwards, right? And then he ran over. No, what movie was I watching?
No,
where the car rolled backwards. No, what did we live watch just the other day?
Oh shit!
It happened to someone in live watch.
We're having a lot of fun with watch parties in our group. There's actually one happening right now while we're recording.
I know, this is great. But there was, anyways, a girl went in reverse and smacked her head.
I can't remember.
Anyways, it didn't happen to this guy, so it doesn't fucking matter.
So let me do the two possibilities thing because it's true that is said probably too many times in this movie.
I liked it. It kind of made it feel like a video game.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Thank you.
Nailed
That's
it.
exactly what I was thinking was that it's like that. And to me, it makes it super rewatchable because I never caught this on the first or second times I was watching it.
I didn't either because I only caught one scene.
You've only seen it once.
Yeah.
There's a couple times where it's really obvious that two possibilities is being worked into what happens in the movie. Like at the end, he's trying to rescue his girl and find where they're sacrificing her to Dagon. And there's literally two tunnels underground. And he says it to himself, like two possibilities. So, I mean, that one's really obvious. But when you go back and you look at it, there are all these little choices that people are making, right? Like my favorite one is they go from the yacht into their incredibly sinking inflatable motor raft.
Everything fucking sinks in this movie.
Right, exactly. And they go to town to go get help, and he's a typical Lovecraft hero. He's whiny. He's physically not strong.
He doesn't think the priest knows English.
Right, he does. Yeah, exactly. And exactly. Lovecraft. He's racist, and he's also like I guess the way I would think about it is that because it's not that he's weak. He turns out to be a fighter, but it's like a Woody Allen thing. Like he just, if bugs were in his room, he'd freak out, right? Like he's fastidious, right? So when they get to town, they find the priest and they find two people quote unquote people in a boat. They're trying to convince them to take them back out to help their friends. And the boat, the SpongeBob SquarePants crew says Squidward says they said they'll agree to take him back to rescue his friends, and they have to decide because what they say is someone has to stay here to tell the police what happened, and someone can go back with the boat and save their friends. So Barbara and Paul they're deciding who's going to stay and who's going back. And she's tougher than he is. You can tell. She's more in the world. She's, she's literally.
She could lift that heavy ass computer.
Yeah,
that laptop was huge.
She can take care of herself better than him, in the real world, right? So he goes, I'll go back and try to help them. And she goes, no, I'll go. You hate boats, right? And he goes, no, I'll go. Now, at this moment, they're literally, without knowing it, deciding who's going to live and die. They just don't know that's what's happening. Ultimately, it's his fate to end up the way it is, so whatever. But she gets basically captured right away. Whoever's staying on land is in big trouble.
Yeah.
And whoever's going back on the boat has earned some extra time, right? But they just don't know any of this is happening.
Yeah.
Right? So you have all these little two possibility moments sprinkled throughout the movie that, like, when you go back and you watch it, you're like, Stuart Gordon was really playing. He was basically moving people through a maze.
Yeah.
Right? It's the Shining Hedge.
I know my favorite part about that scene was, you're talking about when they were deciding, is they don't even try to hide that these people are fucking weird.
No.
Like one of them is wearing, the priest looks pretty normal, but the Fisher guys are wearing sunglasses and a hood, but they still look like fucking fish people.
Yep.
But they're just playing it
and
off.
their skin is a color not found in nature.
No, it's sort of it's like if Disney came up with that one green where I guess it's the Imagineers came up with that color green where you can't really see it, or it's not as visible to you.
Yep.
Those guys are whatever that green is in white.
Yep. Yeah.
That's those guys.
Yeah, they're totally not doing well.
My favorite choice, or I call it a video game moment.
Yes.
To me in the film of the guy could have looked left or not, was when our main guy finds the other human guy and covers his mouth, and then there's a fish person that's only an upper half, and he's sliding with these two rocks on his fist.
It's a great moment.
And I like that moment of that guy could have made a peep
Yep.
and the guy saw him, or he couldn't.
Yep.
That to me was the coolest choice.
Yep. And they basically ended up allied. And that guy, by the way, the film was dedicated to him, Francisco Rabal. He's an amazing actor. He sold that old guy, the guy that got skinned.
Yeah.
He sold that, really. I mean, I think that's why that scene, the skinning scene, is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Just visually brutal. But it's even worse because you really come to sort of like that guy at that point and feel like he's lived a really, really long and hard life. And
his
deserves
family,
better than
his family didn't get all weird and gilly because his dad did not accept.
Correct. So the quick backstory of the story Dagon by H.P. Lovecraft is barely in this movie. Ironically, it's way more the Lovecraft shortish story of Shadow over Innsmouth, which appeared in Weird Tales as the Weird Shadow over Windsmith, because apparently they just added the word weird to everything. But the idea is that the town was basically in famine mode way back in the day. They're a fishing town, sort of like a New England whaling town would be, and they live and die on whether the sea provides bounty or not, and they can't capture any fish.
Is that what they really say? The sea provides bounty.
That's what I say if I was born in the 16th century.
That sounds cool.
but so what happens is they huddle up in their church and they pray to Jesus to provide fish, and Jesus, as he's wont to do, gives them no fish. So they have this strange dark figure come to town who's sort of a pirate or some kind of captain, weird cult leader captain. Right?
Yeah, he's got a weird facial hair situation.
Yeah, he's a strange and intimidating dude. And he goes, "You guys are praying to a God who doesn't answer prayers because you're dumb." He goes, "I'll bring you a God who will bring you fish. I'll bring you Dagon.
This god is a fish.
That's right. And Dagon brings you fish and gold. So he made the town rich, and he gave them all the fish they could eat. So the whole town basically becomes a cult of Dagon, sort of half gratitude, half terror, right?
Yeah.
Situation. But they're opposed by the priest, the original priest who worships Jesus gets killed, and then they the family of the old guy is basically against. There's one scene where you see his dad in the backstory. A weird piece of gold comes up out of the water, and he throws it back into Dagon. He's almost like, I don't want any part of you. I just want fish and a normal life, which he's not going to get. Spoiler, right? So yeah, you're right. He's basically, he's a man, and he's sort of held on to his humanity more than the ones
More than everyone else. Wonder why they didn't try to skin him.
I mean, honestly, I think first of all, he did a pretty good job of disguising himself because he looked like shit. So it looked like whatever process is happening to them is happening to him, sort of too. I mean, it's not like he was walking around looking like GQ.
Like sushi.
Right. So that's one thing. And two thing, I think they just basically thought he was a harmless drunk because he just walked around singing sailor
People were
songs.
Like, ew.
Yeah.
And they're like, ew, me? Ew, you.
Ew, you. Now, here's the thing, and this could be something that I'm putting into the movie that's not there, but I think it's there, and I really liked it, is actually it's probably my favorite thing of the movie that is philosophical, sort of, is the idea that basically everyone is becoming something, right? Mm-hmm. So, and what I found interesting was how that process was working, right? So, but check this out, because you like this because you like stories like the monkey's paw and the box and shit like that.
Yeah.
So it's a be careful what you wish for situation, right? So these people are starving, and all of a sudden they start worshiping this weird god who brings them all the fish they want. He brings them so many fish that all they eat is fish, and they turn into them. Right?
Oh, is that why they...
Yeah, they're turning into fish, right? I mean, that's why they're half aquatic, half,
There needs to be an interview process for God.
They're changing because you are what you eat, right? Basically.
Yeah.
So they're becoming, it's sort of, that part of it is sort of parable for it's either gluttony or greed, right? Like if you imagine what people would do, starving people would do to sell out, to not sell out, because that's not a fair way to characterize it, but imagine what people do just to basically quote unquote feed themselves with whatever they're feeding themselves. Whether you're addicted to something or whether you're just like, it's just because you're hungry. Like what would you, if you went 7 days without eating, what would you do to eat? Like anything, right? So they're becoming that. But what's more interesting to me is Paul is becoming a fighter. Mm-hmm. Now think about what his arc in this movie is. He starts out as a really weak tech geek, for lack of a better word, right? And check out what happens to him over time. He loses his laptop. Then he loses his glasses.
Sounds like a nightmare.
Right. And then he has to fight for himself harder and harder. And by the time you get to the end of it, remember, this is a guy whose girlfriend offered to go in the rescue boat because he couldn't get into a boat. He would get seasick. And now he's going to live the rest of time underwater. Right? And at the end, he basically is fighting the whole mob single-handedly, right? Mm-hmm. So he starts as basically someone who can only live kind of on the internet or in like the digital realm, and in the and he basically returns to where we came from evolution-wise. So his process is fascinating to me, right? Because
he fucks up though.
Wow, how does he fuck up?
Lighting himself on fire. He's like, hold on, I want to spend the rest of eternity looking like this.
You don't look too good at the no. That's true.
I would hope that over,
but they all don't look too good. I think they have different standards of beauty. This is an eye of the beholder situation here.
I don't know. Is it?
Well, she actually, think about it. Macarena, she actually says at the end, she says about her father. I think that was her father, right? he was like body horror incarnate.
Yeah.
With his weird masked face and his Cthulhu head and all that shit. Like he was Davy Jones in it right there at the end.
He was.
but she goes, he was young and charismatic and attractive for a human. She literally says it like, we have a different standard of, like things down here.
Yeah.
Right. They'd have to.
I was just thinking of like, they became fish because they ate fish.
Yes.
Like if I had
and worship the fish god.
see
If you worship the pizza god.
well, I was gonna say if that was the case, I would eat and worship Men's Health magazine. So then because if that's what I'm gonna look like, I would look like Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds got that way without eating magazines, right?
Well,
I mean, there is a way to get.
But
that
he
way.
worked hard for it. I want the express.
You're gonna keep your laptop and your glasses and look
like that.
That's fair.
No, but I do like the idea of him being like this tech guy going all the way back.
Right, exactly. But honestly, when you think about it, they're all going through sort of that process. Like even the old guy, he is meant to become what his family wanted him to be, which is a human who worships a Christian God. And he heads towards that arc. He literally dies saying like the Lord's Prayer, right? So like everyone's headed into this direction of fate, right? And that's what I really like about the movie is at the end when Paul lights himself on fire trying to kill himself. And another thing, I just got to bring this up because I don't know how many people have actually thought of this, but when you're watching horror movies, there's an exhaustion element in the brutal ones where you're watching it, you're like, just kill yourself.
Yeah.
It's a better option than suffering for hundreds of years or whatever is going to happen to you or whatever horrible thing is going to happen. Like, just get out, just take the escape route because
only one
you're
person
doomed.
got to do that, really.
Well, but that happens twice in this movie. Like because Vicky does it, she kills herself, Harakiri style. Yeah. And then he tries to do it by lighting himself on fire. So you got two characters who do that thing that a lot of horror fans think when you're watching a movie, which is pretty rare. I don't remember seeing that in a lot of horror movies.
Yeah, and I like the fact that only one of them got to do it.
Right. Well, his fate was never. But my point was, he pours the gasoline on himself and he takes out his lighter and he literally says, "No possibilities." Right? Like he thinks that he's come to a dead end. He has to kill himself because there's no way to turn the situation to his advantage. But here's the amazing part of this. If you think about what the movie was actually doing, they have said over and over and over again in this movie that these creatures, these people, they live forever. They live, they say forever 3 times. We were laughing
forever,
about it.
Forever.
Because you only need one forever. You don't need a bunch of them, right?
Can you imagine getting to the end of that first forever and being like,
there's another forever?
That took forever. What's next? Oh, forever.
You're not going to get to the end of the first forever. But that's the thing is like, he thinks there's no possibilities and he goes to kill himself. And that's when the revelation happens that he's actually going to live forever. So it's the opposite of what he thinks he is. So it is. So literally at his lowest moment, when he says no possibilities, there's still 2 possibilities, right? Like the 2 possibilities, like he thinks I'm either going to set myself on fire and die, or I'm going to live and try to work my way out of the situation. He goes, I have no options here, so I'm just going to kill myself. But you're not. Like, that's the thing is there was always 2 possibilities, even when he thought there wasn't, which I find fascinating. It's almost like chess. We were getting played with the whole time, and then it was that last move where Stuart Gordon was like, checkmate. Like not only did he not die, he's never going to die. And then they swim into that eye cavern, which is like the creepiest.
That's a cool shot.
Yeah, it's a great shot. You remember that shot after
that
all.
was the one of the things that stuck out to me. But yeah, no, I like the whole choice thing throughout the film.
And I just like the arc of the people headed towards and this might be taking this analogy too far, but one of the things I found interesting was his girlfriend, who does not deserve the fate she gets. That was horrible. She gets lowered into Dagon's like well, right? The beginning of the movie, she has all this character, all this personality, and she's very spontaneous and she's very vivacious and she's like, very energetic and like whatever. And she doesn't obey a lot of the rules and like whatever. So he's basically telling her, don't throw my laptop in the water, don't do this, don't do that, don't, it's not appropriate to make this joke. He's basically telling her, like, you've got too much personality, right? So the last time we meet her, she is just shell-shocked. she can't say anything except for kill me. She has no personality.
She's done.
She's like other left. So she's the only character I think of, the only major character who doesn't go an arc where she goes where she was meant to be, or turn into something where the journey sort of makes sense. Hers is like the one dark underline to that, like footnote to that idea. But it is interesting that she ends up being the quiet, no personality person that he sort of was trying to make her into in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of creepy. So I think there's a little bit of deeper stuff, no pun intended, for the movie. Deeper things.
What was up with
going
that
on
quote
with
at the end? Him talking about going into the.
That's just a straight up quote from Lovecraft, and it was basically just to match the final shot where he was saying.
Well, yeah,
we're
like what's like the juice behind the.
Well, I mean, the idea of that is that you're gonna go live forever with the deep ones, because remember, like in Lovecraft's mythos, there are the time scales are insane. Like, right, like our lifetime is literally a burp to Cthulhu, right? So the fact that they're going into this extended journey with the deep ones, or the nameless ones, or whatever, which is like Dagon, and think about like how weird that ending actually is, because it feels kind of like just a visual ending to the movie, but it's really odd when you think about it, because they spent the whole movie running from Dagon, and they spend the actual last seconds of the movie swimming towards him. And to me, like, what's going to happen there? Is it like family reunion time? Dagon throws out his 80 arms and he's like, welcome home.
I hope not.
Well, that's what's going to happen, right? I mean, that's what they're heading. They're heading.
I mean, at that point, you're kind of invincible. I guess you're gonna live forever. So
what he's going to welcome you too, because you're one of his now, right?
But so you got to be in the water, or is like.
No, you're going to go back and forth in the town and the water, and you're going to do like.
So you're
whatever.
stuck in that town. There's not like a portal to like.
For 3 forevers, dude.
Damn.
Yeah. So that's rough.
I would ask, not Cthulhu, but
Dagon.
Mm-hmm. Let's make another island. You're a god.
You're a god.
I'm a guy.
Yeah.
Let's just build another island.
First of all, you ask him to heal you because you need plastic surgery.
Yeah, you get burnt to shit. No, I like the idea of the H.P. Lovecraftian.
Well, and
scary shit.
It's also like, I think it was cool. It was a little bit of a shell game, but that's one of the things I really admire Stuart Gordon for, is the first shot. When you see that eye symbol that represents Dagon, you have no idea how big that is, because he's given you no frame of reference for it, right? So it's just a shot of the symbol, and then it ends on a shot of them swimming, but they are tiny, like ants compared to that symbol. So like, you're dealing with something that's much bigger. Like, if he had shot it that way in the beginning, you would have, if you had seen that like from his dream, right? If you had seen that, it would have been like, they have no chance. But he doesn't give you that. They don't have a chance. But he doesn't let you know they don't have a chance until the very end when he frames them. Because if Dagon lives there, right, like in a place that looks like it could hold 6 million of them, right?
It's a big
like
place,
they had never had any chance against him, right? I mean, this guy couldn't even figure out how to lock a door. Well, then to be fair, he did figure out how to lock a door. He just.
No, let's talk about how
he's not exactly the equalizer.
Those people were real weak though. Like, they had like really macho looking guys who you could just shank them with any knife.
Well, so that's interesting too, because their potency was in numbers. You're right. None of them were tough. But I think in Lovecraft universe, that's sort of essential. When you've got like a guy who looks like he weighs 104 pounds and hasn't seen the sun in 5 years, it's not like he's physically going to be able to take on a lot of things.
What I'm saying is Dagon might be a little bitch.
Well,
because if that's what he's sending out to defend the island, to grab sacrifices for me, and like, those are the people who you think will like muscle some people down, and they look like that. Maybe, just maybe, you just Dennis the Menace Dagon with a little slingshot.
No, we saw Dagon. He
was pretty quick, especially when he was grabbing that one lady.
Yeah, well, that's the only time you actually see him, and that's pretty scary. And that was like, when the first time I saw that, it's one of those great horror movie moments when you see what happened to her and her hands.
Yeah.
Where when I was watching it, I remember saying out loud to myself watching it, I remember going, holy shit, and then laughing because it's scary and funny.
Which is just sprinkled throughout the whole movie.
Totally.
I love it. Well,
All right, cool.
I'm glad I finally sat beginning to end,
Yes.
saw the whole film. It lived up to like what I remember, which is great. I would have been very disappointed if it was like...
It was just terrible.
Yeah, if it was just hot garbage, but it's like
Yep.
opposite of garbage. It's like, wow, I think I might actually watch it again come Halloween.
Yep.
Might be the Halloween tradition now that I know what it is. And
Yeah,
I've seen
that's
it and I
actually
like
fun.
It.
You could have it on in the background.
Yeah, and it's not like a weird horror film to have in the background.
Your TV faces your door though, so when the kids are trick or treating, let's not have that movie on. That's good.
We'll have the blinds down so
good.
they can't see. But no, it's a good movie.
Yes.
I can't recommend it enough. Now, even if you're not into like Sleepy Hollows and shit, it's just a good horror film.
Yeah, totally. The only thing about this movie is if I would imagine that for some people they might get a little impatient with. I feel like the middle of it is a little slow for some types of horror fans because there's from the flashback story to like the chase around the town scenes, there is a little bit of whatever, but there's actually I actually wanted to call out, I forgot, there's this amazing moment where they do what Pennywise did in the It remake when remember when they go down to the basement and the ghost of Georgie is there and then Pennywise is in the water and swims like there's a moment in this movie just like that where he's fighting off this kid. It keeps calling out for help or alerting and he's trying to hide and he's like shut up and he assumes the kid's like a normal human because he looks like one, but the kid's father or grandfather, I forget which he is full on creature. Like he's like cool. He's been Cronenberged and he looked really cool.
Doesn't look good.
And scary. And then there's this amazing moment that a lesser movie wouldn't have put in when Paul clocks this guy. How does he die? I forget how he dies. He hits him with the toilet lid.
Yeah.
The back of the top of the toilet. So he smacks him, and I think the guy's dead or like badly injured. And the kid goes over to his dad, grandfather, whatever, and he starts really sadly trying to like wake him up, and like he's just he lost someone. And the camera pauses on Ezra's face for a second, where he feels like almost bad, but he's in survival mode, so he's also like not.
Get the kid while you're there. Right, take him out.
Exactly. But it's a weirdly touching moment in such a cartoony movie, So I think there's a lot of moments like that in this movie, and the cast was fantastic. So
yeah, I know this is definitely like Dead Alive with Ash Williams sprinkled in a little creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yep.
With
Three Forevers,
and take the vibe you got from Sleepy Hollow, make it wet.
Yep.
And put it in a crock pot for 8 hours, and you got Dagon.
It's funny that you keep coming back to Sleepy Hollow because the more you say it, the more I think that it is in, like if I was doing my top atmospheric horror films, this would be in there.
Yeah, because the island's a character, much like the town of Sleepy Hollow.
Totally.
And you don't get a lot of that.
No, you don't. And, I think it's really smart that it's a hard sell for me sometimes. Like The Mist did a really good job of making a natural environment breakdown that happens in like modern America believable.
Yeah.
But most movies don't. Like if this movie had taken place where Lovecraft said it, like in 2001 Innsmouth, right? Like in New England, right? It would not be believable that there's just this set aside village where like water creatures hold sway and like whatever. The fact that they transposed it to Europe, I think it was actually pretty genius.
Yeah.
It makes it more believable. Like sometimes you got to change the older writers like a Lovecraft or a Poe. Sometimes you got to change them to get the real vibe they wanted.
Yeah.
Right? If you just do it like it's like the Psycho shot by shot remake that you think doing it shot by shot is loyal to but it's not. What you should do is be true to your own vision and mix it with whatever you're trying to give credit to. So yeah, I think the choices that this movie made, even where they said it, was pretty great. Even though he probably just did it for budget.
Yeah. No, there's just so much shit about this film that I can't get enough of.
All right, so that's Dagon. I can't wait to pick our next movie for our unnamed
For
series.
whatever series this is
Actually,
called.
we'll just ask the group. They'll come up with a name.
Yeah, because it's like
We'll crowdsource
because the series idea is like a film. It's very, very. It's like I don't want to call it underrated because like we were saying, underrated. Everything's underrated.
I'm thinking of it as either fading or forgotten or unspoken of, or like just really underappreciated, right? Because underrated is a quality judgment. Underrated is like, this movie's better than you guys think it is, which is not a concept that I've ever liked.
It's kind of douchey whenever people are like, you know what film's underrated? You mean, I'm sorry, what I meant to say is what film I know is better, but you haven't seen it because I'm better than you.
Right.
That's what I meant to say.
Exactly.
That's what I meant to say.
Exactly.
But do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes. And but that's the thing is like, I recognize that Dagon is not Silence of the Lambs, right? Like,
Yeah.
there are, there's just a different quality of filmmaking happening in a lot of it for a lot of reasons, right? But it's not about the rating so much as about the fact that I have gone to horror conventions over and over and over, and I have seen people in Reanimator shirts and From Beyond, shirts. I've never ever met anyone in a Dagon anything or with any kind of call out or homage to Dagon anything, right? I just feel like it's just below the radar. So.
It definitely is.
All right.
Below the radar.
You'll put in that noise for the beep.
Yeah,
podcast.
that's what we got to do there. All right. So that's Dagon. Until next time, boys and girls, watch a bunch of horror movies and stay
out of the water.
Stay out of the water. Stay dry.
Bye.
Bye.